everyone. Welcome to Thursday. First things first, I'm Jenna Wolf. That is the Hall of Famer Chris Carter. This is Nick Wright. How we doing today, guys?
Good morning.
It's definitely morning.
We've got everything done but the ring ceremony, it would appear.
No, ye with little faith. What is it, 0-131 or something?
It's something like that. I'll give you really good odds if you want to pick the Cavs to complete the comeback.
I'll take that action.
Okay.
I will be the first person to do that on record.
Right. I'd say 4-1's fair.
Well, that's good news for a man who's got nothing but bad news.
Yeah, okay. Exactly right.
All right, we will discuss. We got 3 hours to do it. But let's start the show with what happened last night. Game 3 of the NBA Finals. And oh, what a difference 24 hours makes when it comes to the NBA Finals and who will get MVP honors. Okay, and other things. Just 24 hours ago, Steph Curry had almost wrapped up the award, locked it up. Then Kevin Durant said, hold my beer. KD, 43 points, including a dagger three-point shot to give the Warriors a 3-0 series lead and almost certainly guarantee a third Warriors title in 4 years. Here is Kevin Durant on whether he thought he had to carry the load with his teammates struggling last night.
I didn't think about it at all. I just tried to play hard defense, try to rebound as best as I could. And if my shots were there, just take them patiently and with poise. And I found some good spots, and my teammates did a great job of setting screens for me, setting me up. Coach did a great job of calling plays for me, and I just tried to come through and be aggressive just to do something.
Defenses try to plan for him, but when you're 6'11", 7 feet, and you're shooting a hezzy pull-up on the left wing from 27 feet, that's pretty tough to guard.
That was amazing what he did out there tonight. Some of those shots, I don't think anybody in the world can hit those but him. He was incredible.
I think, CC, Nick, besides LeBron James, no one has been more consistent throughout the playoffs and in the finals in a quiet consistency than Kevin Durant, who, when he saw, not that he needed to, but when everyone else was struggling last night, he really stepped up. 43 points. How impressive was his performance last night? 43
points, Jenna, more importantly, on only 23 shots. Not even going to get into the rebounding, not even going to get into the defense. From the beginning of the game, sometime that he was pressuring LeBron in the backcourt. He knew that was going to be a challenge, even though they went through multiple switches. But Kevin Durant, this is one of the greatest players in the world. Let's forget some of the other things. It's one of the greatest players in the world. It's a perfect situation for him. He is not a guy that wants necessarily the limelight or wants to be the leader, but he just wants to play basketball. He says it all the time, and that's what he's been able to do at Golden State. He doesn't have to worry about that. Steph, not playing well. Clay, not playing well. Kevin Durant, on the world's biggest stage, Kevin Durant showed why he's the basketball player that he is. Second best in the world. And he doesn't have to play backseat to Steph Curry. He doesn't have to play backseat to Draymond Green. In his role within this organization, it fits his skill set. So not only can he be that good offensively, but his ability to make plays for his other teammates. He's got a high basketball IQ.
Yeah.
The totality of it was just too much for the Cavs. And it's not as if we didn't know this, but now that we've seen it, these are the pictures, and Kevin Durant was a huge part. In yesterday's show, I thought that he was going to be a big part to what they were going to do in game number 3. Proved to be true. I thought he would have a significant performance than Steph Curry, and he led the way.
Yeah.
Jenna, you said in the Great Open that, what a difference 24 hours makes. What a difference 2.5 hours makes. Because in the pregame show, right before tip-off, Jeff Van Gundy referred to Steph Curry as the Warriors' best player. Said this is the type of thing you need from your best player. And that will probably be the last time Steph Curry gets called that, as long as Kevin Durant's on this basketball team. Because Kevin Durant, yesterday, a guy who could stop playing basketball today and be one of the 25 greatest players in the history of this great game, will probably finish in the top 15, maybe higher, had the greatest game of his career last night. Let's not get it twisted what it was. It was his playoff career high. It was a game where his other MVP, the reason the Warriors are so unfair is because it's KD and Steph. Steph was having one of the worst games of his career.
Yes.
Certainly his worst finals game, and he's had a few rough finals games over his 4-year final run. And KD had an answer every single time, up to and including hitting a shot from further back, but in the same area of the court that he won last year's finals with, winning this year's finals with. The left wing three-pointer. Last year was to turn a 2-point deficit to a 1-point lead. This year was to turn a 3-point lead into an unable to overcome 6-point lead. Listen, we will spend the better part of 3 hours today talking about how brilliant he was. But when you have a player of this caliber who plays the best game of his career, 3 hours sometimes isn't enough.
And there are guys who get out there and they look like they're trying very hard and they're successful. No one makes it look more effortless than Kevin Durant. There are shots he takes and he's just no expression on his face. And Cece, I've been fighting you on this the whole season, that Kevin Durant needs to step up. He needs to be a leader. We need to see more from him. Why isn't he? And you kept saying, this is not who the guy is. He just wants to go out and play basketball. And last night he did the thing that you say he is. He performed exactly the way he is. He didn't need the leadership or the limelight or the rah-rah or any of it. Went out and scored an effortless 43 points.
Right. I think the steal shot of Kevin Durant, after he makes the three, he takes like 3 steps. And then you see Draymond Green yapping, and you see Steph Curry yapping. Steph's a front runner. And KD just a steal.
Stoic look.
I mean, man, it was just. I don't know what it was, but I know, to me, that's going to be the look that I'm going to remember from Kevin Durant. Now, you talked about LeBron being robbed of the iconic moment. Man, I don't know what's going to happen the rest of Kevin Durant's career, but that moment right there, that face, that look that he had among all the chaos with all the pressure and how he steps through.
There it is.
Man, this is what he wants, man. Like, he wanted that moment. He comes to the game. I watched the press conferences. Nick, you and the staff kind of make fun. I watch what guys wear. Man, Kevin Durant wears the same thing almost. I know it's not the same thing, but a gray Nike sweatsuit. Every once in a while, have on a Nike black hat. Man, he's not
looks like a high school kid going to an AAU tournament. It's a hooping uniform for when you're off the court.
Yeah, I'm here to work.
Exactly.
And when I get done with that uniform, I'm going to put the sweatsuit back on because that's what he's comfortable. That sweatsuit, that's what he's comfortable in, Jenna. He's comfortable playing on a team with a bunch of stars. That's the reason why he left OKC. Now, I'm going to tell you, it's LeBron James's fault. It's LeBron James's fault, the reason why KD's in Golden State. Because a couple years ago, if they don't come back from a 3-1 deficit.
There's the butterfly effect of what losing that title allowed the Warriors to do. The butterfly effect of what the Thunder blowing the 3-1 lead, followed by the Warriors blowing the 3-1 lead. That needed a perfect set of circumstances. We don't even have to get into the NBA Player Association not letting them smooth the cap and all these other things that allowed this to happen. But what it's allowed to happen is the greatest collection of talent in NBA history. And while it has made finals anticlimactic, while it's made a fact that in these last 2 years, LeBron has averaged 35, 11, and 10 in the finals, and he's now 1-7 in those finals as far as the individual games. The only reason that I can, to be totally honest, stomach any of it, because I enjoy the competition of it, I enjoy the finals to be competitive, is because we got a moment like this. If last night's game was
someone won the game.
Right. If last night's game was this result, but it was because Steph went for 22, and KD went for 24, and Clay went for 26, and it was just we got an iconic NBA moment last night. And how about this? I don't blame the Cavs for what their game plan was. There have been 5 times this year KD scored 40 points, playoffs or regular season. Last night was the first one the Warriors won. Like, the idea of don't let Steph get off, don't let Clay get off. We don't really have a great way to stop Kevin Durant anyway. But what Durant did, I couldn't believe this stat. I think it was Marcus Thompson tweeted it out. All year long, KD never made more than one 30-plus point three-pointer in a game, regular season or postseason. Never had a game where he had more than one of those. Last night, he had 4 of them, including the shot that is the iconic shot we're talking about. He was unguardable last night. It wouldn't have mattered. It didn't matter if LeBron was on him. It didn't matter who was on him. He was unguardable last night. And I've poked fun at KD a bit for the quote he gave to Bill Simmons, which is, listen, LeBron spends all his time in the gym working on his body. I work on my game. I want to be able to make shots from everywhere. And we saw some of the downside to that at the end of game 1 when JR bodies him for the rebound. Before JR, it's like, maybe you should spend more time working on your body. I said that. Well, you saw the flip side to it last night. Not a spot on the court that he can't make a shot from. And we've never seen someone his size be able to do that. The length he's listed is 6'9", dude's 7'1", and with a super long arm. You watch him and you just say, if he's hitting shots, there's nothing you can do. It was the best game of his career last night.
Kevin Durant goes for a playoff career-high 43 points as the Warriors win 110-102. They're now up 3 games to none.
For the second straight year.
In the best of 7. Coming up, let's talk about this from the other side. What went wrong for LeBron and the Cavs last night? Next on First Things First.
At Buffalo Wild Wings, we'll admit that we often go overboard with our limited time offerings. We just can't help ourselves. Take our new signature sampler. For $15, you get wings and 3 shareable options, like fried pickles or cheese curds. Then there's our aptly named over-the-top nachos, a literal mountain of crispy tortilla chips loaded with your choice of pulled pork or honey barbecue chicken, corn, jalapenos, and more. Then top it all off with our new platinum margarita. Go overboard with us today at Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports. Available for a limited time while supplies last. Please drink responsibly.
Back here on First Things First, we'll get to the Cavs' survival plan. But first, KD finding a cutting Iggy who takes one dribble before dunking on Tristan Thompson.
Iggy made some nice passes in this game as well. The ball movement, even though he was refusing to shoot the basketball, the way he helps it move when he's out there, you saw the difference.
NBA players talk about his basketball IQ, and you could see the reason why they want him there in that tough spot.
Questionable to even play Game 3. Play the game, maybe, of the series. Kevin Durant, the dagger 3 from way downtown, like it was nothing.
See, you described the look on his face as stoic. It almost looks like relief right there. I mean, whatever it is, like it's not your typical reaction.
Right. He went through a couple different phases. The first one was like relief, and then afterward was like, I mean,
this is what I'm here for?
Yeah. Sign me up.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is.
What do you do when you have no one to pass the ball to? You pass it to yourself. Right, LeBron?
I mean, doing this in the NBA Finals is just comedy.
Yeah, KD decides to repeat what happened last year. LeBron decides to do the same thing. He did this last year in the NBA Finals. Amazing play, amazing athlete, understanding where the ball is going to come off. Made it look easy.
And the NBA counts that as a missed shot and a rebound. They got to adjust that. Well,
you can't, because you got to make it a legal play. Because you can't throw a pass to yourself.
Well,
so you got to give them a.
That's fine.
See?
You still got to adjust it.
Yeah, you like that?
I like
it.
I
got sports smarts.
Sports smarts.
Yeah, you can read a book and all that kind of stuff. But
all right, more on Game 3 from last night. LeBron James held up his end of the proverbial bargain, 33 points and a triple-double. Only issue? Kevin Durant had 43 points, including that big-time 3 from deep to give the Warriors a win and a commanding 3-0 lead in this series. Here is LeBron on facing this juggernaut Warriors team.
The margin of error is very low. I mean, you can't, it's almost like, playing the Patriots. You just can't have mistakes. They're not going to beat themselves, So, when you're able to either force a miscue on them, you have to be able to capitalize, and then you have to be so in tune and razor sharp and focused every single possession. You can't have miscommunication. You can't have laws. You can't have my faults or my bads and things like that, because they're going to make you pay. And when they make you pay, it's a 3-0 or 6-0 or 9-0 run, and it's, and it comes in bunches. So, the room for error is just, you just can't have it.
You said something really key earlier. You felt better about this game because it wasn't every guy on the Warriors hitting 20 to 30 shots. It was sort of a well-played game up until the end. What did the Cavs do wrong? Why couldn't they pull this one out?
I would say there are 2 major keys. One is in the second half, outside of LeBron and Rodney Hood, the whole team was 4 of 19 from the field. Like, in the second half, Rodney Hood played well. LeBron was good. By his standards, probably a little worse than he would like. By anyone else's standards, very good. And no one else could hit a shot. But in the first half, and see, you and I were talking about this during the break, like, we're replaying the Kevin Durant 3 at the end of the game.
Yes.
The Kevin Durant 3 at the end of the first half to cut it from 9 to 6. The Cavs who came out with the flurry. I talked yesterday ad nauseum. When the Cavs have beaten the Warriors over the last 2 years in Cleveland, they've punched them in the face in the first quarter. They did that, and left the first quarter with a 1-point lead because they couldn't close the first or the second quarter, and in the second half they couldn't hit shots. All that plus LeBron, by his standards, what was that, a B-level game? A 30-point triple-double, like on just under 50% shooting? LeBron wasn't spectacular.
He wasn't spectacular from the mid-range game, and he wasn't spectacular from the three-point
Right.
line. So those are the things that LeBron, it's gotten to that, where he can get a 30-point triple-double, and we could be like, wow, we've seen him play so much better. I thought a lot of yesterday's offensive output was going to be predicated on how many jump shots could he hit. And you could see that he couldn't get his jump shot going, and he still was able to get 33 points. But the run at the last minute of the first quarter to get Golden State within one shot, two possessions of the Cavs, and the last minute right before halftime, when the Cavs had all the momentum, when the Warriors needed a shot, Kevin Durant or someone else made that shot. Another reason that they lost, or what went wrong with the Cavs, was you can't allow Jordan Bell to have 10 on the road. You can't 10 points. You can't allow JaVale McGee to have 10 points when Iguodala also is going to give you 8 or 10 and make some very, very heady basketball plays. So when you give away that type of productivity, these are the role players. On the road,
right,
and especially late in the game, the last thing, the problem for the Cavs, late in the game. LeBron plays the whole fourth quarter, 12 minutes, gets 12 points. The rest of the starters, they get 2 points. Kevin Love gets 2, Tristan, 0, JR, 0, George Hill, 0. So even they're playing against an iconic team that got an iconic performance from Kevin Durant, late in the game, if the starters that are LeBron and the others, if they give him some help, they can still steal this win, game number 3 in Cleveland.
The other, through regulation of the first 3 games, the Cavs have scored 107, 103, 102. So, like, their offense, even though LeBron's not getting the help, LeBron's been good enough individually offensively that they have scored around enough points to win. But you've allowed in regulation 107, 122, 110. You got to hold this Warriors team under 105. Period, point blank. And by the way, the one game that they've beaten the Warriors in the last 2 years in the finals, the defense didn't show up in that game either. That was the game where the Cavs had 86 points in the first half, where they hit an NBA Finals record 24 threes. This was your thing about them all year long. When you were saying that they are not going to be able to flip a switch, and you were more skeptical about even in the Eastern Conference playoffs, but LeBron said it. The point you've been making about the defense, point I've been making, which is you have to play 46 minutes of connected defense, and the Cavs have trouble playing 26 minutes. How did Jordan Bell get his points? He's just wide open dunks. JaVale McGee, wide open dunks. They didn't communicate on switches. They gave those guys easy baskets. So the Warriors score 110 when Steph can't hit a shot and Klay can't hit a shot.
Because they focus so much on trying to stop KD and Steph, and they didn't spend so much time, obviously, adjusting defensively. But how do you respond to LeBron coming out and trying really early on to get the other guys involved, as opposed to saying, I got to do this. This is on me tonight. Let me get myself going first before everyone else.
That is the typical LeBron game, and it worked well for them. These role players, JR got off to a great start. Man, Kevin Love, the energy plays that he was making, shot the ball well early. You need those guys to play well early in the game to get their LeBron, he can get going at any point in the game. So that was the right game plan, Jenna, to allow the role players. That's the reason why they had a small first quarter lead. That's why they had a half-time lead, was because of the way that these role players got off, and Ty Lue making the bench move as far as bringing Rodney Hood in. Those were all very, very good moves. But they ran into an iconic performance of Kevin Durant.
But didn't we talk about how important it was for the Cavs, like you mentioned yesterday, to get out to a strong first quarter? The games they've won, they've dominated the first quarter, and I wonder if maybe he should have done a little bit more in the first or come out a little hotter.
Listen, I know we're going to do this to LeBron, that we're going to parse it. LeBron last night had his 5th career finals 30-point triple-double. No one else in the history of the league has more than 1. In fact, the history of the league, not LeBron, has combined 4
How many does
30-point
Michael Jordan
triple-doubles.
have? How many
He's gotten none.
Oh.
Steph's got one, Magic's got one, James Worthy has one, and there's one that I'm leaving out. LeBron's got 5. Like, there it is. Jerry West. Oh, Jerry West in Game 7 of a game he lost. That's the list. 30-point finals, triple-doubles. LeBron had one last night, and we are going to pick apart his game. The 1-3 LeBron hit all night was to cut it from 4 to 1 inside of 2 minutes. Like, yeah, it would have been nice if LeBron had 45, and they needed him to have 45, but we can't expect him to have 45 each night.
Right. We talk about the iconic performance. We talk about the 43 Durant had. But, Jenna, the other thing, LeBron in the first quarter, he got guys involved. Kevin Love had 7. I think JR had 7. But the theme of the game, Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant had 13 in that first quarter to keep Golden State. He was the only Golden State Warrior that was playing well. So LeBron did the right thing, but Kevin Durant, he was the answer to all questions.
Kevin Durant, big time for the Warriors last night. Steph Curry was not. Coming up, why is there so much less pressure on Steph than LeBron? That's next on First Things First. Time for some stories to start your morning. No? Also time for some free agency talk. Among the many possible LeBron destinations, the Lakers. According to reports, LeBron and Paul George will discuss teaming up on the Lakers next season. What do you think, Chris? How good would that Lakers team be?
I believe they got to add at least a couple other little role players, but they're young. They got some good prospects, good assets. Man, I don't believe San Antonio is as apt to trade Kawhi to the Lakers as they would trade him to the East if they were to trade him. But what about Kawhi, Paul George, LeBron?
Well, Kawhi, Paul George, and LeBron would be
that's not
something.
Even...
Well,
that's the Chris putting a little spin on it.
And there's more than meets the eye there. Let me put it like that. Chris is not pulling that out of total thin air. Maybe a little thin air, but not total thin air. But here's the thing: when people say, "It's LeBron and Paul George," would that be enough? Man, if LeBron plays at the level he played at this year, one other legitimate each and every night All-Star would be far better than what he has in Cleveland. And what he's had in Cleveland has them to the NBA Finals and competitive in 2 of the 3 games. I don't think it's the best situation, but it wouldn't be a bad one.
Instantly, they're better defensively. So LeBron would have a chance.
All right, moving on to another potential LeBron destination. According to reports, the Sixers believe that Brian Colangelo had no knowledge of the burner Twitter accounts. Colangelo has claimed he was, quote, fully unaware of these accounts. Nick, as hard as it is for me to believe, can Colangelo escape with his job?
Man, it seems like there's a possibility. Now, he and his father combined in the NBA, they're going on 60-plus years, 0 titles in those 60-plus years, so they've got some job security, unlike most NBA families. Listen, I reread the Ringer story last night. People, again, he was called and asked about 2 of the accounts. They didn't mention 3 of the other ones. And then right when the phone call ended,
yes,
those 3 that weren't mentioned,
shut down.
It was shut down or went to private. I don't understand how there's any deniability here, but I would have fired him 6 days ago. The fact that he still has a job to me means he might keep the job.
Now, he might be able to keep his job, but that don't mean if I'm a player that I got to trust him, because that trust was breached. With that intel, there's too many things that were actually true going through these accounts. Now, I got common sense, all right? Don't try to pull that one over on me. And I do believe that who his father is will ultimately have an influence.
I think it is right now. It's still having an influence.
Clearly, the Sixers want to try to find a way to keep him if they're going through all this. All right, back to last night's game. Rodney Hood had a solid night after being reinserted in Ty Lue's rotation. Perhaps should have done that a little sooner. He scored 15 points, 6 boards in the loss. Nick, how impressed were you with Hood's performance?
Listen, Hood was arguably the 3rd best player on the Cavs last night, certainly their best bench player, and he gave them good minutes. I didn't blame Ty Lue for taking him out of the rotation. He was really, really bad against Indiana. But luckily for Rodney Hood, Jordan Clarkson was as bad as any player in playoff history has been with extended minutes. So that spot in the rotation opened up, and Hood made the most of it. Hood was really good for them last night.
And the reason why on the second trade, why we thought that the Cleveland would get better. They had Hood with the other pieces, gives them far more athleticism. He's got a great jumper. He can get his J. It was perfect for what the Cavs needed. I just wish that we had seen this for 30 games, because I believe with a playoff performance like last night, if we had some time, he could have gone for 25 or 30 last night. But based on the limited role that he was going to play, because he hadn't been playing, he could only get 15 or 20, even though he played a spectacular game.
All right, finally, Kevin Durant picked a perfect night to have his playoff high. He scored 43 points, including a big three-point shot with less than a minute to go. Warriors now hold a 3-0 lead in the series. Chris, how impressive was KD's performance last night?
It's the most impressive performance I've seen him. And seeing he's been to 3 finals, his first one there with OKC, and to see where he was before in the Western Conference final when they were up 3-1, and how his attitude now in these big moments, it's totally changed. So he went to the right place for his personality. Now he's got to be able to work out some other things, but it's time to recognize him for who he is. I mean, he's one of the best scorers. He's a shot maker. And right now, at this point in his career, the situations aren't bigger than him. Anytime you can face LeBron James and be able to play the way that he's played, man, you got to give Kevin Durant credit. Man, he spent hundreds and thousands of hours in the gym working on his game so that last night that the world could see it. And as Nick said, man, he's got spots on the court, not 3 spots, not 5 spots. He's got 10 spots on the court where he is totally comfortable. And to me, Steph is dangerous because of the length for which he can shoot. But I would much rather face Steph day to day than to face Kevin Durant day to day, because his overall length, and he doesn't need a pick. He doesn't need to run off a screen. He can take you one-on-one. He can take you off the bounce, and if you give it to him, he can just shoot it. So the number of offensive weapons that he has, I believe, is scarier than what Steph presents.
If on this 3-hour show today we spent all 3 hours talking about Kevin Durant, I'd be fine with it. This is the best game of the guy's career. Okay, this is a guy, you guys know how irrationally much I care about NBA history. This is a guy who will end up in the Pantheon. This is a guy who already is one of the 25 greatest players ever. And we saw his greatest game of his career last night. His playoff career high. Another iconic shot from almost the identical spot on the court that he hit the one in Game 3 last year, except this one was 5 feet further back. You mentioned scoring from anywhere on the court. I'm going to go a deep pull here for a moment. When KD's first couple years in the league, he reminded people of someone, a guy named Bernard King. So Bernard King played with the Knicks. He didn't look like Bernard King, but the reason he reminded him he could score from anywhere. Bernard King famously talked about how he only had 5 dribble moves. He had a dribble move if you regarded him close right, far right, straight up, close left, far left. And he would pick 17 spots on the court. He would only practice from those 17 spots. So for him, it was all a math equation. Which of my 1 dribble moves do I need? Which of my 1 of 5? Which of my 1 of 17 spots? So he said, Bernard King said, look at my highlights. 95% of my points came from, I can draw them for you on the court. You know what KD's spots are? Every inch inside 35 feet. He doesn't have a spot he needs to get to. He will see where the defense is guarding him and say, whatever spot is easiest to get to, I will go get there. And he's played in 13 career finals games. He scored 25 points at least in all 13 career finals games. He's been great, man.
There's 3 levels of scoring the basketball. That's at the rim, in the paint. There's intermediate, which being the jump shot, and beyond the three-point arc. And he is great at all 3. Now, there is no one else in the NBA that can say they're great at all 3. He's the only player. He's the only player that can say he's great at all 3.
And last night, he was the only player that was great for the Warriors. While KD was having his monster game, things weren't going quite as well for all his other teammates. Steph Curry, for example, was not so good, only scoring 11 points. He only hit 1 three-pointer. Despite his struggles, Golden State has now all but wrapped this up with a 3-0 lead in this series. Here's LeBron on the challenges of playing the Warriors.
That's why they retooled this team, went out and got KD to where there's really not much pressure on, I want to say any of them to score, but if one of them have a bad game, then they got 3 or 4 guys that can actually pick up, the load.
CeCe, what do you think? Is LeBron right that there's not much pressure on any one Golden State Warrior?
Well, I'm not going to hold him to every word much, because there's pressure when you're that talented regardless. Now, I can argue that sometimes when you play with talented players, mentally, it's more challenging. But there are times where you get breathers. Steph, there's no way he has that type of game, and he's happy at the end of it unless KD has that iconic moment. So I understand what LeBron is saying. After being very, very successful for a long time in the NFL, Dennis Green went out and got me Randy Moss. And it alleviated a lot of pressure day to day for me to be spectacular.
Okay.
You know, so I didn't have to worry as much. Now, I worried about my own game. I put the same amount of energy, the same amount of practice, but it wasn't a death sentence if I didn't play well. So the game, it was more joyful to play. Well, and I tell you this all the time. Of 16 years playing, those 4 years I played with Randy were my most enjoyable years. Not only did we win more, but because that burden was lifted, having him there. Yes, it is. He's true. LeBron, it's right.
There is a special type of pressure that you could argue when you have other great players, you don't want to let them down, that you want to meet their level. I understand that. But for the most basic level of pressure, it is how much of my team's ability to win lies on my shoulders and my shoulders alone. And that is what the Warriors have hacked. That's what the Warriors have solved. Steph Curry would be the best player on every team in the NBA except for the 2 teams playing in this series. So 28 teams, if Steph went to that team, he'd be their best player. He was 1 for 14 last night with 4 minutes left in this basketball game, and his team was ahead. That's impossible. There is not another team that could have a guy that good be that bad. He was having a historically bad finals game.
First time in, 21 finals games he didn't hit multiple threes. Well, First time.
He was 0 for 9 from 3. He was approaching the John Starks 0 for 11. He had Van Gundy and Jackson talking about what's the worst finals games anyone has ever had. That was the discussion. For a guy who came into the game, as I'll mention it again, in the pregame show, he was called the Warriors' best player.
Yep.
He was the overwhelming Vegas. He went into the game, according to Vegas, 10 times more likely to win Finals MVP than Kevin Durant. He has the worst, forget Finals game, playoff game of his career, and they win anyway. If you go into it, think about the opposite of that. LeBron has the 5th 30-point triple-double of his career, only the 9th in NBA history. It's only been done 9 times. He's done it 5. 4 guys done it once. And what's the narrative around him this one? Didn't do enough. LeBron goes 33, 10, 11. Didn't do enough.
Yep, didn't make enough jump shots.
Steph made 1 3 at the end of the game, made 1 big play for them to put him up 4, and that was enough. That's the difference.
Just a quick question about Steph and what happened last night. He just doesn't play well on the road, or hasn't been. As a professional athlete, what's the mindset when he's not hurt, there's no pressure on you to have to carry, you don't have to win, it's not a must-win game, but to come out and be so cold, seemingly, and just not able to really get anything going?
Well, Jen, the only way to describe it is because there is more pressure playing on the road. Steph has not performed under those moments great. Like he hasn't. There's no technique. There's no reason from a strategy standpoint.
Right.
He's missing the same shots that he was making when they're at home. Steph, and that's why people like to say that he's a front runner, that when they have the lead or when they're playing at home, like he's out there shimmying, doing all types of things like this. But you talk about what a luxury. The game Steph Curry had last night where he has 11 points. I want you to guess when the last time LeBron won a game where he scored 11 points. His team.
Oh, I mean, it can't be it's not this run in Cleveland.
No.
Maybe not early in Miami?
No. Let's go December 5th, 2008 against the Pacers. Wow. December 5th, 2008. LeBron scores 11 points, and he won a game. That's the same thing that Steph Curry does in the final. Jenny, you bring up a great point, great stat there. 20 and 21 finals game. This is the only game that he didn't hit multiple threes and still is not the butt or still not part of the criticism.
Right.
That's the luxury that Steph and the Warriors have.
I talked yesterday about how Clay has the luxury of getting paid like a superstar because he is, and we never talk about Clay's
pressure.
legacy.
Yeah.
That Clay, when he plays great, it's a bonus.
Yep.
When he doesn't play great, no one's like, how does this affect Klay Thompson's legacy? Steph does have a legacy to discuss. KD does, LeBron does. But here's the luxury of the Warriors. This game last night is reminiscent of what LeBron did in 2011 against the Mavericks. Now, Steph didn't look scared the way LeBron did in that series, but statistically speaking, it's reminiscent of one of those Maverick games. We've talked about that series, those games, for 7 years.
Yes.
Why?
Right.
Because when LeBron had that game, his team lost. And if last night, if you don't have Kevin Durant, if you forget if he's not there, just put DeMar DeRozan in that spot, right? Who's a top 15 player, top 20 player in this league, and he has 30, right? You lose, and everyone this morning's killing Steph. The luxury of being able to go into a game saying, yes, I'd like to win Finals MVP. Yes, I'd like to be great, but I don't have to be. Conversely, LeBron has had an 11-point game they won. LeBron had a 51-point game. His team lost. Like, that's when LeBron is saying going into a game and not having the pressure that it's all on you, that's what he's talking about.
Steph Curry, 1 for 10 from 3, 11 points in last night's win over the Cavs. All right, coming up, will Friday's Game 4 be LeBron's last in Cleveland as a Cav? And someone from our staff will be at that game. That's next on First Things First. Here on First Things First, let's go over LeBron James' to-do list during these NBA Finals, shall we? Play 46 minutes a game? Check. Score more than 37 points a game? Check. Win any games? Hold on, we haven't done that yet.
Wow.
LeBron, shade on the Kang. LeBron currently staring at the brink of losing his 6th NBA Finals and perhaps playing his last game as a Cav in Cleveland. Chris Carter, any chance LeBron James stays in Cleveland with the Cavs on the verge of being swept?
No. I mean, why would he stay? I mean, the chance of LeBron, I told Nick before this season started, and we might always be on different sides of this, but I might be persuaded. But LeBron can't afford no more loss in the finals. Like, LeBron needs some wins. And now this one right here, 3-5 now, this would be 3-6. Like, no, he don't need to stay there, because how much better is he going to get as a basketball player? Because they can't get better. They got the, ninth pick? Eighth pick.
And all their guys are locked up.
Yes, and they're an older roster. The style doesn't work. This is a super team that they're going against. Now, in the normal circumstances, if Kevin Durant was in OKC and Golden State was themselves as they exist, yeah, Cleveland would be in the running. But let's not, the talent, the existing non-relationship that he's got with the owner, with a working relationship, right, Nick, you would call it. And I want to win more championships. Like, yes, these are the things for LeBron. So, no, he can't do that in Cleveland. He's done more than enough for any one player being from the state of Ohio coming back and providing that one championship that they did 2 seasons ago. But, no, I don't see him staying there. There are better options for him for his basketball career, because this is what this is about. This is about basketball. And I believe that, man, he's got to leave. He can't stay there any longer.
Dan Wetzel of Yahoo Sports wrote an article late last night talking about the history of Cleveland sports. There's the fumble. There's the drive. There's Jose Mesa. And then he added a new one, the incompetence. And he's talking about having LeBron on your roster for 11 years. For 9 of those 11 years, he's the best player in the sport. And you get 1 title out of it. Miami had him for 4, got 2 out of it. The absolute inability the first time around to surround him with any all-star caliber players.
Yes.
And the absolute inability the second time around to retain your GM and then retain your all-world point guard that will now end up with him leaving twice. That's one Dan Gilbert has to own right on his chest, because Dan Gilbert got a reprieve because he was lucky that he owned the team that not only won the lottery, he wasn't the owner when they won the lottery, but won the lottery that got LeBron, and most lucky that he owned the team closest to Akron, so LeBron came back, and now he's going to lose him again.
Nick, how important, personally, just from LeBron's camp, losing David Griffin, what did that do for them in the domino effect?
I think it was it was doubly bad. Here's why. One, they thought it was a betrayal because LeBron signs a multi-year deal for the first time after they win the championship. So this past offseason was the first one that LeBron couldn't threaten to leave. And this is the offseason that the owner, once again, is too cheap to retain his GM. Since Dan Gilbert has owned this basketball team, every GM he's ever hired has been there for either shorter than his first contract or just his first contract. He's never extended a GM. He's never gotten to a second contract. LeBron won a championship with David Griffin, trusted David Griffin. They don't bring him back, even though David Griffin wants to come back. And LeBron's people believe, so therefore I think LeBron believes, I haven't spoken to LeBron about this specifically, but that if David Griffin's there, Kyrie's still there. And if Kyrie's still there, they think all of this is different, and that they are more competitive, and that they maybe they're the ones up 2-1 in these NBA Finals, as great as Golden State is. And so, will LeBron leave? Absolutely. Does he have a perfect place to go? No. There is no there. I've been saying this for 2 months. The only team that fit-wise, you're like, that is perfect, is Portland. But he's not going to Portland. They don't have the cap space for it. They have the roster. You're like, oh, 2 great shooters. You can play. That one works. But so Philly is an option. Houston is an option. LA is an option. None of them are. I'm sure LeBron, to be totally honest with you, would like to stay in Cleveland 1 more year. See what the Lakers do. See what happens with Kawhi. See if a better fit opens up. But I would argue the Cavs and Dan Gilbert have forced his hand to where he can't stay in Cleveland another year, not if he wants to compete for a title.
But unlike last time, he has this beautiful luxury of being able to choose any team without anyone having any issues. Everyone seemingly knows he's leaving. I don't think Cleveland fans are expecting him to stay, whether they want him to or not. He can pick wherever he wants to go. We've got multiple teams on the table. There are reports that he's meeting with multiple teams. And he can choose where he thinks he wants to spend probably the last 4 or 5 years of his career, which is a luxury he didn't have the first time he left Cleveland.
Well, there was several things he didn't have. You make great points. There were several things he didn't have. He didn't have experience. He didn't have the backlash of making the decision. So how much smarter he got after that. He wasn't a champion. He wasn't a champion. I mean, he was considered to be a traitor. Born in Ohio, drafted in Ohio, going to bring a championship to Ohio. So when he left, and I'm going to tell you what LeBron don't have, and this is the most precious thing you got. That's age and time and youth. He was 25 then, Jenna. Now, he wasn't a champion, but at 33, this is the last move on the chessboard. If this don't put him in checkmate, if this don't get him to be the GOAT, then there are no moves after this.
Which is again, LeBron knew when he was trying to get them to keep Kyrie that Kyrie's contract expires after next year. He also knew that the folks in Cleveland believe, and if you look at any of the advanced numbers, that Cavs team in last year's NBA playoffs was one of the greatest offenses ever. It took Kevin Durant playing at a level he's honestly played the highest level he's played over the course of a series in his career. Now, last night was the best game of his career. It took a perfect storm for the Warriors to win the series as quickly as they did. They liked the idea of running it back, maybe having another year next year, and then make that final decision. If Kyrie Irving's still on this team, it is not a foregone conclusion LeBron's leaving. LeBron wanted them to keep Kyrie. David Griffin has now gone on the record in the last month or so saying, yeah, I think if I were there, I could have found a way to maybe smooth this over. None of that happened, and now LeBron's got to go.
I want the movie to come out just so I could see how it ends, so I know, and then I could talk about it the next day on the air, and then I'll know more than other people. Well, hey, coming up.
If we stay on the air, we'll be talking about it. It'll be
Kenyon Martin
we're making a movie.
Tells us what went wrong for the Cavs last night. Hear from him next on First Things First. Welcome back in to First Things First. We're now joined by former NBA All-Star Kenyon Martin.
What's up, Kenyon?
Good
to see you, sir.
Kenyon, it's all but over. Or no? Maybe? Huh?
Ain't no maybe in this. This thing is a foregone conclusion.
Oh, boy. All right, so 24 hours ago, Kenyon Martin, Steph Curry was well on his way towards wrapping up his first Finals MVP award, and he would have if this was a best of 3 and the Finals ended after Game 2. But it's not. and so he didn't. And in Game 3 last night, Steph struggled, and Kevin Durant did not. And man, did he not. 43 points, including a dagger three-point shot to help seal the win. Kenyon, I'll start with you. How masterful was Kevin Durant's 43-point night in Game 3 last night?
It was laughable, just how easy it came.
Made it look easy, right?
Yeah, he had it on automatic. Just the carryover from Game 2, he didn't miss a beat. He figured out, I think at the end of the Houston series, what he wasn't doing, and he was letting them force him into shots. This Game 2, Game 3, he was, I'm getting to my spot, and stop it if you can. And he's proven that no matter who they got over there, they can't do nothing with him.
And one of the things that's different, like NBA players have spots. You talked about the legendary Bernard King in his book, how he wrote about the spots he was trying to get to. Yeah. You've defended players. You know, part of the game plan is, listen, he likes to be here. He likes to be here. But we've never seen a player that has so many spots on the court and at 7 feet. Man, if they bring him above the three-point line and hand him the basketball, we've never seen any type of weapon like that in basketball.
Oh yeah, he's a special guy. Like none before, none to come that I've seen that can do that and put the ball in the basket at that rate, that size, skill set, handle the ball. He's a matchup nightmare for most guards in this league, most bigs.
Well, he's a matchup nightmare for anybody because the guards aren't tall enough and the bigs aren't fast enough.
Yeah, so what do you do?
I mean, and you mentioned that he can get every spot is his spot, but last night, what made last night's game so special was he expanded his range unlike any time he's done all year. I'm going to bring this up again. He didn't have a single game all year where he hit more than one shot from 30-plus feet. Okay. He hit 4 of them last night, including the dagger to win the game. And so, like, we've always known he's a matchup nightmare. We've always known he's a great mid-range shooter. When he's hitting from Steph and Lillard range, then there truly is nothing you can do. You know why he didn't score 50 last night? Because the game wasn't long enough. Like, he was going to keep scoring as long as that game was going. He wasn't getting tired. He let him in rebounding. This was the all-around, the single best game I believe Kevin Durant's ever had. I know he scored 50 once this year. I know he's had huge games before. All things considered, I believe this is the best game Durant's ever played.
I agree with you. I've seen a lot of him. We're in the same conference for years.
Yeah.
Matched up a lot with him.
You had to guard him a lot.
Watch tape, yeah. Spent a lot of time guarding him. Try to be physical with him as you can, but that doesn't work. He just uses what he does well. Get to his spots, like you said. The statement that you made earlier that he made about LeBron works on his body and he works on his game, that's the best statement I've heard in a long time. No, because you can tell. You can tell, like, that's what he does. Like, I'm going to go in this gym, I'm going to get in this lab, and I'm going to work on every spot on this court where there will be no deficiencies, where you can't force me to do something that I'm not comfortable doing or I don't want to do, you know?
You made when we first came out, you said, how did he do? And you said, well, it was laughable.
Yeah.
He made it look easy. Because you expect, and you played against him, you expect a guy like this to knock him down and get himself jacked up and pumped up and fired up and rally the team and, like, get the guys going and scream and yell. It's not who he is off the court, and it's not who he is on the court. It's a guy who we hear what you just said. He just wants to practice playing basketball, doesn't want to worry about anything else, and that lends itself towards the performance we saw last night.
You can tell that he's on a mission, and he's been on a mission for a couple years now to prove to people that he should be mentioned in the likes with LeBron James and the best in his league, the Kobe Bryants, and just retired. You know what I'm saying? But he was awesome. I don't know. I'm sitting there watching it and I'm laughing. Like when he pulled up from 33, I'm sitting there like nobody in the whole gym thought he was gonna shoot that but him.
Right.
Yeah.
He knew, like, however they play this, I'm firing it.
Yeah.
And man, like, it was easy, man. Hats off to him. Listen,
I'm a fan. I'm a fan of people who can score the basketball, and we haven't seen a player like him. But the thing that's very, interesting about the whole thing is, you used to guard this guy. How much better has he gotten mentally and physically? Because the physical part used to be something that that was part of the game plan to take to him. When you saw him last night compared to when he was a kid, what is the difference that we're watching as fans?
That he's he's on the attack. He's never playing on his heels now. You know what I'm saying? Before, you can climb into him, and he'll probably get a little more timid because he wasn't comfortable in that role. But now you look at last night on the free throw line, just the physical part of it. He's boxing out Tristan Thompson on the free throw line last night. I'm saying?
Yes.
Keep, like, fighting him, keeping him off the glass. Well, a lot of guys wouldn't want that action when you that guy. You know, but he's not backing down from that, which says a lot to me, that he's engaged in all aspects. And like I said, well, like when I would guard him, like I said, all I would try to do is get into him, be physical, force him to do things, push him around, hit him, do stuff like that. But now none of that bothers him because he's so locked in at what he's trying to accomplish. And that's win championships, and you can tell.
Well, and Jenna, you keep pointing out kind of his demeanor, and there's a level to where his demeanor's working in his favor, and that is an even-keeled demeanor. We were talking about this before the show. He doesn't seem to get too low, and he doesn't seem to get too high. That's why, after he hits that shot, Draymond's quote after the game was, "I was cursing him out, and I realized I needed to chill." Steph's screaming. KD is right here. Like, he is, sometimes it almost seems like you're not engaged, when in reality I don't want to say he's on autopilot because he's not, but he is not allowing the results to dictate how he feels about how he played. Yeah. He seems to be a very process-oriented guy. If I make the right choices, if I make the right play, I will, to quote LeBron, live with the result. Yeah. And he's staying totally even-keeled throughout. And I mean, in the last 2 games, he's 25 of 37. In the last 2 games, he's scored 69 points on 37 shots. That's comedy, man. Like the efficiency is something that in today's NBA we value a lot more than we used to. Yeah. Like the volume scorers are out of vogue, efficient scorers are in vogue. KD's shooting 56% these finals. Steph's shooting 39%. Like, Steph went into that game yesterday, everyone forgot that through 3 quarters of game 2, KD was far better because Steph had the amazing 4th quarter. And then KD reminded everyone how much better he's been this series last night.
So we spent all day yesterday and the day before talking about how Steph had the NBA Finals award just locked up, MVP award locked up. How quickly has that now shifted?
A day.
I mean, it's Kevin Durant.
48 minutes of an NBA game.
Yeah.
That quickly. KD hadn't played bad in the first 2 games.
No.
Steph had that great fourth quarter.
Had that great 4th quarter because that was the most recent thing that we remembered. But
and storylines.
Yeah, storylines. But KD just came out and reminded the world, and this is what I do in these moments. And I'm up against arguably the best player in the NBA right now, and I'm going to show y'all my worth against that guy. And that's what he's doing.
And at the backdrop of Klay doing nothing and Steph doing nothing, because even when Steph went off in the 4th quarter with the 5 threes, which the historic performance of 9 threes in game number 2, man, the other guys were playing good, though.
Yes.
So now you're talking about it was a little more desperation. It was far more clutch. I mean,
what KD did.
Yes.
Because Steph was terrible for the game.
And nobody else to rely on.
Right. Well, and so KD still had the benefit last night that even though Steph was bad, they were afraid to leave him, so he wasn't getting double teamed. But he couldn't. This wasn't a game where, KD scores 43, but they also look at what everyone else did. Yeah. This was KD's game. Yeah. This was I'll say it all day. This is a guy who is going to finish as one of the 15, if not one of the 10 greatest players in the history of this game. Yeah. He's been in the league 11 years. This is the best game he's ever played. This is his career high in the playoffs. It's the best game he's ever played.
And another note, what I saw something from KD last night, when he was on the bench and Steph was out there, he was trying to get Steph going. Mm-hmm. It was doing the free throw. He came up to Steph, gave him dap. Mm-hmm. Listen, come on, I need you. You know what I'm saying? So that says that he's in the moment. He understands that he needs a little more help. But if you're not going to give it to me, then I'm going to take this thing upon myself like I've been doing this game. And I'm going to lead us to victory.
There was a really cool moment at the end of the first half after KD hit that 3, which was a huge 3. The difference between being down 9 and being down 6 at halftime, especially when the Warriors know they're getting the ball to start the 3rd quarter. They almost always score on that play because it's a Steve Kerr basically drawn-up play. KD hits that 3. Steph greets him. They're walking. Steph's yelling. And KD clearly mouths to Steph, "I got you. Yeah. I got you." Like, Steph was playing poorly in the game. Definitely. KD, I think at halftime, had 24, and he said, "I got you," and he lived up to it the rest of the night.
Steph Curry, not so great. Kevin Durant, fantastic. 43 points and only one fake Twitter account. That's awesome.
Oh, wow.
I got to bring it in.
Today's not the day for that.
Oh, no, I
General.
just to sneak it in. I took it out of all my other stories. Love
and
you,
it was
KD.
probably way more than one.
Kenyon, we'll see you a little bit later in the show. Nick, thank you always
No
for
problem.
the line right before the coffee drink. And you guys at home, has this been the best finals of LeBron's career? Next on First Things First.